You have been saying time and again that you didn't think these tariffs would ever hit Apple products. Would you say the same thing right now?
I would. I don't think much has changed. This 5 to 10% probability that Apple products will be tariffed, and understand that Tim Cook meets with the president for strategic reasons. If the probability was 0, they probably would not meet. But I do think it's important to understand the purpose of the tariffs. They're to have a negative impact on China. In the case of an Apple tariff, I understand that there are categories that get more broadly, but they haven't really scoped out what exact products. In the case of a tariff with on Apple products coming from China to the U.S., that would have a negative impact on what is the U.S.'s arguably the world's greatest company and a symbol of the strength of the U.S. It seems to me illogical that that is what the Trump administration will want to do. So yes, Emily, I think this is it's still a low probability that Apple products get tariffed. I think that that line of thinking is going to be a minority because there is just so much in motion, so much speculation going on right now. I think it's going to be hard for investors to really have clear-headed thinking in the weeks to come.
Ian, would you agree? Is this just bluster?
I don't think so, no. I mean, I think, if you're in the electronics industry, China is your biggest market. I mean, Gene's talking about Apple. We've already seen one of the consequences of the US action against Huawei is that they focused on their domestic market and took market share away from everybody else in China. So there's plenty of unintended consequences here. I mean, you can argue whether one particular product, one particular component will be a subject or not, but the overall impact of this is undoubtedly negative. Both sides are going to suffer, and that's why you're seeing, the semiconductor stocks, the electronic stocks.
So you're saying even if
so
Apple products aren't tariffed, it will negatively affect Apple in your view?
Well, the longer this goes on, right, the worse this becomes, the more that China, as the biggest market for many of these products, has to think about how can we get by without the US? How can we get by without US phones, US components, US chips, US screens, whatever it is that's being supplied? That's already started. How can that be good for anybody?
Gene, how do you respond to that? I mean, earlier today, the president did demand, basically in a tweet, that US companies start looking for alternatives to China, and Apple has a huge supply chain in China and also sells into the China market and may not really have a plan B.
My first response is I need to clarify that if there was a prolonged trade dispute and all companies are going to be negatively impacted, the consumer, Apple will be impacted by that too. Just to be clear, I don't think Apple products are going to be directly tariffed. To the bigger question about the opposite side is, will China ultimately create tariffs on its side that impact Apple products? That would be, in my opinion, not a politically smart move for China, because I think it would really hit at the heart of, I think that could cause an overreaction, if possible, from the administration side. Also, I would point out that there is a way to try to at least see some insight in terms of how the Chinese government thinks about this. And this is something that we've been monitoring on China online media, which is heavily curated by the government, is that the messaging, I haven't checked it as of today, but the messaging's been relatively neutral to slightly supportive of Apple, surprisingly. And I think what that tells you is that if there was going to be a move that where, for example, China would tariff Apple products in China, have a negative impact on 11% of Apple's business, mainland China. If that was going to happen, I think it would be out of the blue at this point, given they've had a chance to start to seed a direction, and they seem to be more in a neutral direction at this point.